It's strange times.
It is strange times.
But, as to your other point, I'm very grateful to having the ability to be able to work from home.
Yes.
And it is a drag that, I had a bunch of tours booked as well, and they all got canceled and all that kind of stuff. But the fact that because of these different abilities to have ways to generate loot ski.
Yeah, and it's leading to some, like you say, we're for me, for sure, a lot of us are learning new skills that we didn't have before, and collaborating. I'm getting all kinds of tracks from friends, like, hey, would you do? Like I said, I've got the Flying V is out for a Judas Priest cover. It's like,
right.
I wouldn't have been doing that, but this is a blast. We were talking about the awkwardness of the V and how hard it is to get the right strap placement. I typed in Paul Stanley Flying V. Where did he put the strap? Because initially it comes on the tip of the wing, and then it just hangs just like I don't know what. It just like this is not cool. This feels horrible. But then there was a whole chat board somewhere with like, well, here's these 3 other positions you can try underneath about. So I chose just smack dab in the middle, and by gosh, if it didn't work, great. So you'll see me out there playing "Living After Midnight" real soon. After midnight. Yeah, I tried it with the leather jacket on, but I couldn't pull that off. But the flying flea, the flying flea, exactly. The first Flying V I ever saw was the cover of the Kinks' Greatest Hits record on the lovely Reprise record label.
Exactly.
And that's Bobby. That's Bobby Graham on every one of those tracks, by the way.
Interesting. And old Slim Jim Page was supposed to be on a few of those.
He is on a couple of those, but it is definitely Dave Davies on.
That does that solo.
On You Really Got Me. That's been corroborated by Ray and Bobby Graham.
Yeah.
So type in Bobby Graham, folks, that are a fan of great drumming, and you'll be very pissed off that you did not know this name, because he's one of the greatest drummers ever, and he's no longer with us. But I got to know him. With the beauty of the internet, I found this website because, again, I was convinced that he's the guy on these records, but I'm not hearing any credit. I dug and dug and dug, and there was this interview that Steve Smith had done with Clem Catini, who was the guy from the Tornadoes, Telstar.
Okay.
Brian Bennett from the Shadows, and this other guy, Bobby Graham. Who's Bobby Graham? And all through this, they're talking about the sessions they had done, and they said Bobby's likely the most recorded, along with Clem Catini. But he likely the guy on the Dave Clark 5 records. So that's it. And I found his website and tucked in. There was legal stuff, and he couldn't mention that it's him on the records, right?
Oh.
And so, but then I found this, and there was an email. I said, Bobby, I can't believe I'm only finding you now after a lifetime of thinking you're the greatest drummer in the world. But I'm so happy to find you. Then I started getting these calls a week later from Antigua. I'm like, what is this? But it was just a number that was. But he was in the he was in the UK. He was in the band. It was just logging through there, and we developed this phone friendship, and we talked, for hours. And at the end of our first conversation, I said, "Bobby, have you seen Standing in the Shadows of Motown?" I'm sure you've seen that film about the Motown. I said, "Bobby, this is your story. You need to check this out." So I'm going to send it to you. The next time we talk, says, "Don't bother sending it, mate. I saw it. I was in tears." It's this thing where there's so many uncredited, amazing musicians that have given us such value and joy in our life. So anyway, we really had a bond, and I was going to try to get him to come over to the States, but it just never worked out. He unfortunately passed away. But you really got me till the end of the day. Tired of waiting. Listen to that drum sound. I think go listen to Any Way You Want It, Bits and Pieces, Glad All Over, and listen to that snare sound. You'll start to recognize it.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It's amazing. I love him so much.
Wild.
Yeah. Wild.
You're a fan. You're a fan of the music.
I like to get inside, like under the hood, man.
Yes, I can dig it.
You can dig it.
It's amazing the different ways that we hyper focus on things, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, and again, how lucky we are to have this in our life. I mean, there's some people that maybe don't have a hobby or a passion as guitar players and music fans have. It's
right.
It's
that's one of the things about the internet too, isn't it? It's that fact, I mean, you can be reading any biography now or autobiography and they'll make these obscure references, and then you just go right online.
Yeah, and
you're able to find all this information and then find further ancillary stuff on YouTube, and then still live stream. People are going, "What kind of strings do you use?" And you're like, "If there was a device."
Only if there was a device where I've said this 1,000 other times. Yes, if only there was something. But but pre all that, there was a certain joy of the hunt.
Absolutely.
There was Steve Lukather in a 1982 Guitar World magazine interview. It was mentioned that there was a live CD with him at the Baked Potato called Super Spud, Greg Matheson, Picaro. Right. I looked for that record and then CD for years. I was like, okay, I finally went to Japan for the first time in 1990. I'm in every record store. I'm going to find Japan's the place. Couldn't find it. I finally found it at Ear Ecstasy, my brother's record store in Louisville, Kentucky. But it was the thing. Like now, you just go on the internet. Okay, instant gratification. But there was a thrill of you had to read the book. You had to read the album credits. So, and now it's like, okay, it's in my back pocket. I even wait now before I Shazam. I've got to figure out who is this. There was someone on the radio earlier today, and I thought, I think it's Level 42. I wasn't sure. Yeah, sure. Right. Now we got the Shazam backup. We can name that tune. Is not nearly as fun as it used to be,
but it's interesting because folks will say, it's too easy now, and you're like, well, you still have to put the time in.
The playing thing that is it. It's overwhelming because the entire wealth of information in the world is in your back pocket.
Right.
And I'm sure there was a student I had when I got back into doing a little local teaching. When my friend at the Guitar Sanctuary, George Fuller, opened up his store, and hey, would you come?
Glorious place.
Would you? That's right. We have played there together.
Yes.
So I did. I taught for a little while there before I started doing the online thing. And one of the first guys to come in, had the he brought in the stack of books. He'd gone through the online Berkeley course, and it's like all these scales, all this stuff. And I was like, well, let's just let's just play A minor to G to F. Let's just see where you are. He didn't know what to do. Right. He'd gotten all this information, but had no application or basis for what to do with it, right? And so that's the first thing I'll tell people. It's like, don't be so overwhelmed by all this stuff because you just need the little simple things on a regular basis to get to get that traction, right, and to keep going. So there's no shortcuts aside from you can have the guy show you, but you know darn well too that we had the benefit of having to earn it. There was no books or videos. There was a record player, and if you're lucky to see a neighbor play a chord that you didn't know or whatever.
Right.
But it's that connection with the ear and the hands that's the most valuable. But yeah, dude, I watched everybody's videos, and I'm learning licks that way too. So it's I get the fun and the ease of that.
Right.
But when you can earn it in the old-fashioned way too, I'm confident that it ingrains in a much deeper fashion.
Isn't it wild when you discover someone that is like an older, jazz or blues person or rock person that for whatever reason never crossed your path, and all of a sudden
all the time
someone goes, what do you mean you haven't heard of this guy? And
sure, exactly.
Like, oh my God! Then the quest begins anew.
No, I love, and that is the beauty. There's so much great stuff waiting, And I'm more like that. I mean, there's modern guys that come along that you go like, oh man, this is amazing. But it's always fun going back. For me, it was only in the last couple of years that the Django was on my radar.
Right.
When I was a kid, it wasn't electric. It wasn't, though he did play electric, a little later in his career. It was
the bootlegs of him playing with the Duke Ellington band. That's some cool stuff.
That is a cool thing because he actually did some gigs in the States.
Yes.
But there's one live track called Impromptu.
Yes.
You can find Impromptu live, and it sounds like Stern and Brian May. It's got because he's got the electric. It's cranked up, and it's
starting to give a little bit.
Dude, it's just breaking up, and these unison with the horns. And this is like Brian May and Mike Stern, 1953 or whatever it was. Like, so him. I always think of that. He's been behind me the whole time. Andy, when you are ready, I am here.
Right.
And so, obviously, there's been such a resurgence of interest in his playing, and so many great players.
Absolutely.
And who's the guy, Jimmy? Oh, okay. He kind of lost it for a little while there. Anyway, there's so many great, inspiring players and that whole style, which I'll never do, proficiently. But man, there's so much beauty there to learn.
Yeah, there is, absolutely.
It's always that going backwards, man. I don't know.
I love his squirrely little vibrato. You know what I mean?
It's a very different thing.
Yeah,
but you hear it in Les Paul's playing.
Yes.
Because Django was a big guy for Les Paul. And apparently there was a meeting where when Django came to New York, I guess for the Ellington gig,
right?
He showed up somewhere where Les was backstage playing, and hey, somebody yelled, "Hey, Django Reinhardt's here." To say, "Yeah, well, tell him to bring me a case of beer too." Like there's no way Django Reinhardt is here,
right?
But there he was, right?
Exactly.
Anyway, but yeah, what a marvelous, and just in the story of his hand getting burned when he was 19 and having to do all that with just the two
Right.
fingers and the deformed, happily that he could play the ninth chords, I guess, with the
Right.
middle finger, the ring finger and the pinky that were fused together. It's insane. It's just insane. But anyway, just to give us joy and love and frustration of like, I'll never be able to do that. But man, that's awesome.
It is glorious.
It is glorious. Has there been, what's been the more recent guy for you to go back and check out? Has there been anybody to come along that you hadn't had that connection with it?
As of late, I'm trying. Well, I got him into him a few years ago, but I was just listening to some old Mel Brown stuff. Are you familiar with Mel Brown?
I don't know Mel. Here we go. Yay.
He had a record back in the day called Chicken Fat, and then he played with Bobby Bland for a while.
Okay, cool.
And, he actually ran the Antone's house band for a while back.
Okay.
And then he ended up going to Canada. Some rich guy in Canada came down and hired the band to move to Kitchener or something up in Canada. And that's where he lived the remainder of his life. And that blues festival that's up there was inspired by Mel Brown. Anyway, so he was a cool player because he had, played like 175s and Birdlands and stuff, but he was a blues guy, but with a little bit of a little jazz thrown in as well. You know what I mean?
Nice. And
so that record Chicken Fat has Herb Ellis actually playing rhythm guitar on it.
So what year was that? What year was Chicken Fat?
I want to say early 70s, late 60s.
Okay. Wow.
So it's kind of Meters-y. It's kind of a Meters-y vibe.
Ooh, nice.
You'll dig it. So you got Mel Brown.
Oh, I'll check that out.
Yeah.
When you mentioned the big hollow body, but broken up and that early recording of Robin Ford with Jimmy
Witherspoon.
That record, man, that lived with me for a long time, and that tone. I mean, just. And the vocabulary was there already. It was great blues, but he was nailing those changes in a way that was.
I mean, I'll never forget when I was a youngin' in high school. I played a Telly just because that was the Fender guitar that was available to me. It wasn't like I need to look at it. It was like, okay, here it is.
Yeah.
And I remember I every time B.B. King was on Johnny Carson, I would wait up and with my VHS, and I was going to record it.
Nice.
One time. Martin Mull was the guest host, and B.B. King was on, and he says to B.B., "Do you mind if I jam with you?"
Yeah, because Martin played. Yeah, that's right.
And so Martin he had a Birdland into like a deluxe or something like that. And it was, I'll never forget, it was like the greatest tone I'd ever heard. So I've always
from Martin.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I've always loved, the neck pickup on the arch toppy thing that's giving a little bit of gas sounds so
I want to hear Martin Mull do that. That sounds
good. I need to. I think I found it on YouTube. Someone had posted it.
Okay, cool. Is he as good as George Goebbels?
Well, I don't know about that. Well, listen.
What?
Andy Timmons, so much fun hanging with you.
Not enough time.
For spending some time with us and telling some stories. I really appreciate it. People go, it's andytimmons.com, I would imagine.
There's one of those.
Check it out. Check all of his stuff out.
Come hang.
And hope to see you again soon, my friend, in the person. So
in the person, in the flesh, in the gristle flesh.
That's right. Well, thanks so much, my friend. Great to see you. Take care of yourself, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, man.
Adios.
Adios, amigos.